Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings as we do have snow and ice warnings issued over the next few days as cold air will be returning and it will bring back some snow and ice in places. We're going to see very cold air spreading in behind the low pressure system that moved through later today into tomorrow, and some really quite cold Arctic air does come back in. But luckily, if you are sick of the colder weather and do want something a bit more spring-like, the colder air will only really last perhaps 48 to 72 hours at the most. So it is really only a cold snap, and with it, we're expecting maybe some heavier snow over the higher ground, but to low-lying areas for the majority of people. It will be wintry showers, maybe some ice and frost overnight, but nothing too severe, and of course colder temperatures. So we'll have a look at that on the UKV as well, and then we'll have a look at the long range, look at the GFS, GM, ECMWF, and the ensemble to see what the rest of March has in store. Now, of course, we have had the sudden stratospheric warming that has caused the colder weather last week, has caused this extensive blocking and all this cold air flooding out in towards the UK. The reason why the cold air mass pushing in later this or next week, really, in the next few days, is so cold is because so much cold air is being pushed out of the Arctic because of high latitude blocking. Now, it does look likely as we head through the rest of the month, we will continue to see those effects, that blocking continuing. Of course, the air masses to our north are starting to warm up, so any cold snap over the coming weeks will get less and less severe as time goes on. And of course, it doesn't have to play exactly like that. The blocking can be positioned in a way that the UK doesn't see anything at all that is cold, and some runs have even got high pressure sitting over the top of us with perhaps warmer conditions prevailing. So we'll explore that in the second half of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure to like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Now, of course, we saw a lot of unsettled weather yesterday, with especially through the evening, with some snow over the higher ground in the north. That's pretty much all melted now as we are in a big wedge of very mild air. Now, the bitterly cold air is not too far off the north of Scotland at the moment, just ahead of this weather front, and it will sink southwards through this evening into tomorrow as well, spreading through for all areas once this main low does clear. So we have swapped the cold air for much milder air, but it is also going to bring some very unsettled conditions in places. Do expect some very heavy rain over the course of the next 24 hours. At the moment, it's not too bad, and hopefully for the rest of the day, for most areas, isn't too bad. Of course, there is some rain in Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England, and of course into the south and west, rain is approaching. But for most areas, it is pretty mild and pretty pleasant out there. But it will be turning a lot more horrible over the course of this evening, and then once this low clears into Europe, the floodgates for that bitterly cold air will be coming back. So as I'm recording this around 1 PM, you can see a very mild day, widespread yellow, something we haven't seen for about a week or so, if not more. You can see that we've got temperatures around those low teens, generally average to above average for the time of year. Big contrast to the well below average conditions we've had for the last week to 10 days, and very, very cold conditions last week. March has come out to around 2 to 3 degrees, depending on where you are, below average so far up until the first 11 days. So very, very cold. Of course, that cold air will be returning. Look at Iceland, it is still bitterly cold, and that's where the air will be originating from over the course of the next couple of days. So yes, very mild at the moment, but don't expect this to be the norm now. It is going to be turning a lot colder, and we are expecting more colder snaps over the coming weeks. So if you do now have a look at the weather warnings, we do have various snow and ice warnings issued for northern areas over the course of the next couple of days through Monday and Tuesday. Now, the first warning is actually this inland warning. These are the 3 separate warnings we have here. We've got an inland warning that comes into force at 5 AM tomorrow, so overnight tonight into tomorrow until 11 AM on Tuesday. Now, this is for that rain that will turn to snow, bringing the chance to some disruption to transport and infrastructure. Icy surfaces are likely later. So that big area of low pressure pushing in from the southwest at the moment, bringing some rain in the north as well. It will turn into a big area of precipitation, and as it clears, cold air will undercut it overnight tonight into tomorrow morning, and we're likely to see some heavy snow inland, especially over the higher ground, but not exclusively there. You can see again, high likelihood lower end of the impact matrix, a band of rain will gradually turn to snow from the north during Monday morning, initially above 200 metres, but later to low levels. That very cold air undercuts it. 2 to 4 centimetres above 200 metres, 5 to 10 centimetres above 300 metres, and a few centimetres may develop locally at lower levels into the evening. Rain and snow will likely hit to the south of the area during Monday evening, and then we could see some very icy stretches developing, and of course snow showers will follow that, giving a few centimetres, and that's what these other warnings are for through Monday and Tuesday. Now I've got this other warning from 5 p.m. tomorrow until 11 a.m. Tuesday through Monday evening into Tuesday, when the really cold air does eventually push in. Overnight snow showers are likely to lead to slippery and unsafe surfaces, unsafe conditions on untreated roads. Cold air spreading southwards across UK, following a band of rain, sleet and snow will bring frequent snow showers through northern, western and eastern parts, as well as parts of Northern Ireland. Overnight, these will accumulate on some roads and pavements, with anywhere between a light dusting and several centimetres of snow possible. Again, it all depends on if we see the wintry showers band, which is really impossible to say without actually looking at the live radar and seeing where they do develop. So in these areas you could just have a dusting, you could have nothing, or you could actually have some pretty decent accumulations into Tuesday morning. Between the showers, partially melted snow is likely to freeze on untreated surfaces. Again, we're going to have the same issues as last week. Whenever there's sunshine around, it will melt that snow. And wintry showers will continue through Tuesday, although by mid-morning the temperature on most roads will likely have risen sufficiently to reduce the risk of further accumulating snow or ice. So again, highlighting at any daytime hours, snow accumulations is highly unlikely. Very likely, lower end of the impact. And then we have this more widespread snow and ice warning for southern Scotland, northern England and northern Wales. Again, 5 p.m. tomorrow until 10 a.m. On Tuesday, rain, sleet and snow followed by ice likely to cause some impacts. An area of rain will turn to sleet and snow from the north, initially over Scotland, then over northern England during Monday evening. Accumulating snow will mostly be above 2 to 300 metres, but low levels in Scotland for a time, 2 to 5 centimetres sleet and snow clearing southeastwards overnight into Tuesday, with temperatures then falling and ice forming. Again, this is for that precipitation band that clears. I'm expecting perhaps further warnings for Tuesday and Wednesday for snow showers, but nothing too significant. As you've seen with all of these, the warning impact metrics is high likelihood, lower end of the impact. So if the likelihood increases, it's only going to be a yellow warning. Not expecting any amber warnings from this as of yet, unless things do rapidly upgrade. And then, of course, into Tuesday, we've got those same warnings issued. So if you do now have a look at the UK, if you have a look at what is going on, as it is quite bizarre really, we're going to go from around 14-15 degrees today to many areas being almost 10 degrees below that by Tuesday. So if we do look at the precipitation at the moment, you can see those heavier bands of precipitation moving in, but that's really areas of instability ahead of the main weather system. Now that big precipitation band will push in from the south and the west, bringing some very heavy rain overnight tonight into tomorrow. Many areas are going to be having pretty significant rainfall from the early evening onwards, and that will last all the way through Monday morning. Some very heavy rain there, and turning to snow as we see across northern Scotland. Elsewhere, some heavier showers through most of Monday. Very unsettled in that milder conditions for cold air, and snow starts sipping in from the south. Look at that, widespread snow through Scotland and perhaps even Northern Ireland there over the higher ground. Eventually that snow does clear southwards, and we could even see snow to parts of northern England, Northern Ireland, and that's why we've got that warning through northern areas, and even to low-lying areas we could see some falling snow overnight, but no accumulating really to low-lying areas, so not expecting any significant disruption. And then through Tuesday, some very heavy snow showers pushing in. Again, could see some warnings for this, but once again, not expecting anything really accumulating from this because it is during the day, but it could give quite widespread blizzard conditions for a time when these showers do move through. Perhaps there's an area of more instability there, moving parts of North Wales, the Midlands down towards southeastern areas, overnight Tuesday into Wednesday. And again, there could be some accumulations from that overnight, but big uncertainty with that. We'll have to see that nearer the time. For eventually, Wednesday into Thursday, we see that big precipitation band return from the southwest, snow initially, before turning us all unsettled and milder once again into Thursday. And it looks like that will remain for a good few days at least. You can see that from the upper air temperatures, very average conditions sort of prevailing by the end of the week, but you can see just a few days prior to that, and through Monday into Tuesday, look at that -8 to -10 degrees, pushing in bitterly cold air. Again, seeing this in the midst of winter, we'll be seeing widespread ice days with bitterly cold conditions. But of course, being now into the middle of March, it is going to give temperatures really in the mid-single digits. So if you do look at those max temperatures, you can see today it's very mild. Look at that, widely 10 to 14 degrees. Wouldn't be surprised to see a 15 degrees somewhere. But through northern Scotland, still around freezing or 1 degree, as cold air is just about hanging on. Overnight tonight, that cold air will start to drift southwards, snow in northern areas, but still pretty mild in the south. Through tomorrow, 12 to 14 degrees once again, but widely below freezing in Scotland. But beyond Monday into Tuesday, widespread frost developing for most areas, down towards freezing, maybe even down to minus 10 through Scotland, and then Tuesday will be a cold day. In the far south, maybe 5 to 8 degrees, so average to below average. Further northwards could actually not really get much above 3 or 4 degrees, really quite cold, and of course below freezing over higher ground. Beyond that, into Wednesday, widespread frost in the north where we do escape the cloud, and finally into Wednesday, many areas through the afternoon, really only sort of 3 to 6 degrees, really quite chilly, and then colder than that over the higher ground. But much milder air is coming in from the southwest, so by the time Thursday afternoon, many areas up to 14 or 15 degrees south of Scotland. Scotland still slightly colder, but it should start to turn milder into Friday as eventually milder air will push in. So you can see a bit all over the place over the coming days, but there will be wintry hazards around. It is going to be very cold at times, and it could be quite snowy in places at times, mainly over higher ground. But as we saw through Tuesday and perhaps Wednesday as well, there could be quite a few heavy wintry showers around, even to low-lying areas. Again, not expecting any significant accumulations. We could see some disruption, as we could see some temporary accumulations and perhaps some quite whiteout conditions. So it could go, as I said a few videos ago, it could go from sunshine and clear skies and pretty settled conditions to huge blizzards the next minute, and then back to those settled conditions 10 minutes later. That's the sort of conditions we'll be seeing as the big blustery showers do move in. If we do now have a look at the long range, see what is in store for the rest of the month, you can see that we've got this southwesterly wind coming at the moment, but all this cold air is still just to our north as a result of blocking up towards Greenland and northern Canada. Eventually that cold air does wrap back around in towards the UK, very cold conditions prevailing through the rest, or through the middle of the week. But it's only really being powered by a mid-Atlantic ridge, and eventually low pressure comes in from the west. Now, some runs have tried to continue this high pressure to our north and try to pull in colder air once again. Now, this GFS does actually get that going. Nothing too significant, but starts to pull in colder northerly winds once again. But again, a cold snap of a few days, nothing more than that. Eventually it does go more westerly, but continuing with all these areas of low pressure detached with areas of high pressure, pretty typical conditions post the sun stratospheric warming, give the possibility of colder spells at times. The best way to really look at this time of year is to put on the potential equivalent temperature, just to see those darker blue air masses moving in from the north. Look at that, bitterly cold through the middle of next week, and then much milder air spreading in from the southwest, and then eventually another colder snap there for a few days through the following week, before eventually it does turn slightly milder, but keeping that cold air nearby, perhaps easterly winds there. Again, nothing crazy because it is getting towards the end of March, but could be cold and frosty with that. So there is the potential that March stays on average colder than average, or considerably colder than average, but I do expect there to be milder spells within this of a few days. It could be a typical pattern where we oscillate between mild conditions for 2 or 3 days, very cold conditions for 2 or 3 days. Again, probably won't strictly stay to that, but that's the sort of pattern we are seeing from this GFS. And at the end of the video, and as you'll see in the ensembles, there definitely are signs of colder and milder spells at times. If you look at the GEM, see how that does compare over the next 10 days. You can see that we do have that northerly wind coming in later this week, very cold, and then eventually that high pressure does build to our north, tries to pull in northerly winds, and it does it successfully at day 10. Northeasterly winds here. It's quite long tracked, so as you can see with the upper air temperatures, it does take a bit of time for that very cold air to come in, and it's not absolutely bitterly cold, but on the northern edge of this, I wouldn't be surprised to see a bit of snow with that big dividing line there. Again, we're not seeing this exactly on the GFS, similar sort of northerly flow with high pressure building up into the North Atlantic, but there's not this exact pattern, so I wouldn't take this as gospel yet, but definitely signs that we could see another further cold spell in the coming week or two. As I said, oscillating between those milder and colder spells. If we finally look at the ECMWF, see how that does compare. Again, we see that northerly wind pushing it at the moment, very cold conditions prevailing there this week, and then eventually low pressure clears away, and we do attempt to see more colder spells in from the north, but very similar pattern, not quite coming off with more of a stagnant westerly flow. Again, nothing ridiculously mild, cold air perhaps getting in from the north, but not too widespread. So the potential for colder weather there, but not fully coming off. Now, if you finish by looking at the ensembles, you can see it's really well reflected from the latest GFS ensembles. Milder at the moment, so a bit above average, then well below average by almost 5 to 10 degrees depending on your region, and then springboarding back towards average or slightly above average for 2 or 3 days, and then we see signs again from around the 20th to the 26th perhaps of another colder spell. I don't suspect it will last 5 or 6 days. I suspect that this is just ensemble spread on uncertainty and which low pressure system as it comes through brings that cold air on its back edge. I do suspect it will be sort of a 2 or 3 day cold spell like the one coming up this working week, just on uncertainty where it will develop within the 20th to the 26th. But about a week later from this upcoming cold spell, we're going to see another potentially colder spell of weather. And there are signs, of course, of milder weather, but nothing too significant. Again, I expect to see this sort of oscillating between average to slightly above average air masses to average to well below average air masses pushing in as well, which with very cold start to March we've had, I do think that this really could end up as quite considerably below average, maybe 1 or 2 degrees below average than normal, and that is pretty bang on from seeing a sudden stratospheric warming, and that's what many people have expected. So we'll have to see how it does play out, but definitely signs we'll continue to see wintry risks. But I must emphasise, the further we head through March, those cold air masses to our north get less and less severe, daylight hours get longer, and the sun strength just rapidly continues to increase in strength. So we will see any of those wintry hazards considerably reduced over the coming weeks. Perhaps with similar cold spell this week happening in 2 weeks' time, we'd see probably just a few wintry showers around and some frost. Really not expecting anything too major as we head through the end of the month into April, but we could continue to see colder spells around, which does give a little bit, which is a little bit unfortunate, as I know a lot of people will want something a little bit warmer and drier inevitably this time of year after sort of 5 or 6 months of pretty much doom and gloom with low daylight days. And of course, colder weather as well. We have had quite a bit of cold weather this winter. Again, not all areas seeing significant snow, but we've had a lot of colder weather. So I think a lot of people will be looking forward to something a bit milder over the coming weeks. But unfortunately, to get rid of all this colder pattern and colder weather, we're going to have to wait another few weeks, perhaps as late as April. If you just look at the ECMWF ensembles, they show something pretty similar, perhaps not quite as a distinct signal for a colder pattern towards the middle of the month, towards sort of the 20th to the 24th, but both the control and the operational run are showing something a little bit colder there, so perhaps signs of something colder, but nothing too distinct here. But regardless, still generally around average, nothing particularly mild. And again, under higher pressure, we can still see cooler conditions this time of year with frost and fog, especially overnight. So anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure you do stay safe out there, as there are going to continue to be wintry hazards through this coming week and probably through the rest of March as well. And of course, we'll keep you updated on any more colder snaps. Hopefully, though, we do see in the coming weeks something a little bit milder, a little bit warmer consistently instead of just sort of a day or two with some very unsettled weather with it. So hopefully we do see something like that, but I wouldn't hold your hats. It could be, and it could be as early as April at this stage, perhaps, or sorry, as late as April. Really, April could be the time when we do start to see things more consistently improving. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.